want to say thank you, Lori, for accepting to be here and prepare your amazing slideshow. Can't wait to to see what you have prepared for us. And of course, thank you to everybody that's joining and that's supporting as well, Astrology Victoria and our speakers, and is wanting to be part of this amazing community. So I just welcome everybody. And yeah, at the end, we shall talk more about Astrology Victoria and how also you can also join Lori and find Lori. So we will do that at so please feel free to, like, again, stay as long as you may. Thank you.
Yes.
Let's hand it over to Lori or to Dulcie.
I'll just add a couple more things. So just so as you know, the event is being recorded. So at the end, when we go to a discussion, just know that it is being recorded. So whatever you feel comfortable sharing or asking on camera, you make sure that you're comfortable with that. Otherwise, you can put it in the chat and we can go through to the questions there. This event is by donation. So I'm going to add a link to Lori's Buy Me a Coffee site, and feel free to send a donation there. If you don't have the funds, you are completely welcome to join, no problem. So it's completely up to you. Usually we suggest between $10 to $20, but it's completely up to you. Okay, well, thank you so much, Lori. I'm going to hit the record on my end. And I think it's just recording for you. So that.
Oh, yeah. Now that could be an issue.
That's amazing. It did for both of us.
Are you able to record?
Yeah, it's recording for both of us somehow from you doing it. Okay.
Yeah. So if somehow it doesn't work and I end up with the recording, I'll send it to you for
it's
you
all
too.
Good. Yeah, perfect. All right. So now I will hand it over to you. Thank you so much.
Okay, wonderful. So if everybody who is listening could mute themselves for sure, that'll really help at this point. So there's no background sound during the presentation. This is a class that I have created a couple of times over, and it's the intermediate to beginner level of Profections. There is another way more advanced version. At any point though, if I sense that people are getting overwhelmed, if you're not astrologically super sophisticated or even moderately, I can always simplify this. I really want in this presentation for you all to get the feeling of how this is a life hack tool. This is just something that whether you're an astrologer or not, you can use. And for those of you who are on my mailing list who are here, you've got a divine timing cheat sheet to give you a really precise little like refrigerator PDF one-page item, but I'll put the link to that as well in the bottom of the YouTube. I'll give a free download link to our Victoria hosts, so they can also offer that to listeners later on. So I'm going to start off with the slideshow, and I'm hoping to give you guys a real sense of how the ancient tradition really knew what they were doing. I'm a Hellenistic whole sign astrologer. I've been using that tradition now for 4 years, and I really have to say some of the tricks of the trade that you'll learn in this tradition are just useful, plain old useful. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen, and then give me a second while I pull up the slideshow. Okay, and I'm going to make it to big size, so give me a minute. We're going to go full screen, and here we go. So I always call this annual profections, not perfection. You often hear people, even astrologers, saying perfection. I'm like, well, guys, it's profections. Annual profections, like I'm for something, is really one of astrology's best kept timing secrets. I swear, as much as that sounds like a sales pitch, I believe it really is. It's a game changer for me, for my students, for people I know who played with this technique and been blown away. So what are profections? Where did they come from, and how do they work? Well, first of all, they have a very, very old storyline. They've been around for, thousands of years. This is a little bit of a list of all of the sources that were who use profections, going back to Dorotheus of Sidon, Thaddeus Valens, Ptolemy in the 2nd century, Hephaestus of Thebes, and we've got also quite a few of the Persian astrologers as well. And Masha, I can never say his name, Allah and the other dude, they also were, these are Persian astrologers, but they were contemporaneous to the Hellenistic astrologers, quite fond of this technique. Now, I'm going to give you a couple of really fun quotes that I hope inspire you to get the gist of why I think this is such a fun tool. And in general, I'll give you the ancient version of a quote and then a modern one. So Vettius Valens in the 2nd century was quite fond of this technique. And he wrote a little quote here, and I'm not going to read the whole thing, but the gist of it is that if you wish to have a knowledge of the future and not be burdened by vain hopes and not be spending yourself in grievous toil or vainly loving the impossible or moving in directions basically that are against the flow. Okay, that's what he's really saying. You know, this is what you want to have, this kind of a tool where you are not moving in a vain direction with no hope because you're not at all tuned in to what is actually sort of like the prevailing wind of a given time in your life. And in this case, the prevailing wind that we're talking about is the wind of your profection age. Of course, there's many winds, right? There's the wind of transits and there's the wind of secondary progressions, but this is one particular tool. So Steve Jobs had this quote, which I found to be almost perfect for what profections are about. He talks about you can't connect the dots looking forward, you can only connect them looking backwards. Now, you know, this is what profections are so good for. Once we get going, you'll see what I mean. You can really use them, especially if you're my age, I'm 59, to go back through all of your life and almost do a life map and see what trends repeat, what cycles repeat in this thing called your profection years or annual profections or profection ages. It's all the same words. I mean, just, you know, different terms for the same thing. Now, because this is an ancient tool that comes out of ancient astrology, Hellenistic astrology, Persian astrology, you cannot do this tool effectively unless you're casting your chart or other people's charts in whole sign houses. And if you try to do it without that, you're just going to get a headache. So number one, you need to do it this way because this is a Time Lord technique, and Time Lords are about whole sign houses bound to one whole sign as one whole house. So I encourage you all to go to astro.com or astro-seek and find the drop-down menu. In astro.com, it's extended chart selection. And it's just like you're casting your chart, but instead of a modern quadrant-based house system with unequal houses, it's going to be dropping down to whole sign houses as an option, and it'll cast your chart with 12 houses that are equal to 12 signs that are 30 degrees each. Okay, so it looks different than quadrant-based houses. Now, technically, I'm a fiend for the whole sign houses. It's changed my practice as an astrologer. It's changed my understanding of my own chart, and it's what the ancients use. So I'm a bit of a zealot. Okay, so that's what a whole sign house chart looks like. So for some of you who are already astrologers, this is like something you might understand. If you're new to astrology, you can see that the ascendant called the AS is floating in the middle of the first house or anywhere. It could float between degrees, 0 to 29. And the midheaven, which represents MC or high noon, is floating somewhere in the sky. In this case, it's floating in the 11th house. And sometimes it can float in the actually whole sign house system. It can float anywhere from houses 7 to 12. So this is a different house system, but an essential one to use if you're going to capitalize on the power of the profection age tool. So the basic formula is that every age is a profection house and sign. So you start the profection wheel from your first house, and that would be being born, 0 to 12 months old. The second house in the zodiacal order is your first year of life. The third house of your natal chart is your second year of life, onward and onward and onward. And now you can use a simple formula. The first house ages are always 0, 12, 24, 36, 48, 60, 72, and onward. And so if you pin that memory, mnemonic device or whatever you want to call it in your brain as the first house is always the 0, 12, 24, 36, 12th year, onward and onward, then you can just manually calculate in your head, this profection system of ages bound to houses, bound to signs. Now, there's a lot of these wheels online now. About 4 or 5 years ago, this is Chris Brennan of the Astrology podcast version. Now there's hundreds of them out there. People have been using this technique more and more over the last 4 years, but this was his basic wheel. I kind of skewed it to fit it in here, but you can see the idea. And sometimes if you want, if you're seeing clients and you're an astrologer, it's nice to have something like this printed out and have it handy. So you're not sitting there like I'm always doing, going like with my fingers and counting the houses and counting the ages, but basically this is a nice little cheat sheet for your own life. And for when you're doing this for friends and you're doing this for family members, to remind yourself of the ages belonging to which houses. Okay. And it does go obviously higher than the 70s. This is a wheel that's abbreviated. So we'll be looking at even Queen Elizabeth later, who is now at 95, which is a 12th house age. So every birthday or age begins a new 12-month profection year. So annual profections already. And you're going to start with the whole month of your birthday. Now, this is a tricky piece, and I did a lot of research on this, and there's some disagreement among astrologers, so I will acknowledge that. Like, I know that Austin Kopek would not agree with me, but I've done so much research on this that I beg to differ. We're using whole sign houses, meaning that, it's like the whole house is the whole sign. I found that the whole is the way this thing works. So you start with the whole month of your birthday. So if someone's born on the last day of the month, we don't go like April 29th or April 30th to April 30th. We just go, this is the month of your birthday, and it is the whole of the house. You'll be seeing this in a minute as I apply it, to show you what I'm talking about. But so it might seem abstract right now, but wait till we get to some actual charts and I'm showing you what I mean. But just understand that it's always simply the beginning of your age, and when your birthday happens, no matter what day of the month that you're in, that new energy of the new profection age begins at the very beginning of that month, right? So I'm born April 4th. And on my birthday this April, I'm going to move into my first house age, but I'll be 60. Well, I'm not going to go, oh, I'm not there on April 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. I am there. I'm there as soon as I go into that new month. It may heat up a lot, and I may argue, maybe I'm still experiencing some of the 12th house energy from the age of 59. I could argue that, I could research it, but trust me, it's mostly as soon as you step into the month, that is when your energy shifts to the lessons and the themes of the new age, which is based, of course, on the house system. All right. So in this thing, because I've taught this class to students, I see your supporting documents, but because I have an in-depth meaning of the houses. But what I'm saying here is that it's really important as you learn this tool to really have a good knowledge of the meaning of each of the 1 through 12 houses. Understanding them will help you understand the themes of a given age. Really important to note that. And now every single age / house will have a Time Lord as well. And the Time Lord will be the ruling planet of the sign that corresponds to that house. So I'll use me as just a talking example. In April, I'll turn 60. I'll move into my first house. The sign that is occupying my first house is Aquarius. And in traditional astrology, Saturn, not Uranus, is the ruler of Aquarius. So I will move into a year in which the Lord of the year, or the Time Lord of the year, is Saturn. Now, I'm going to cover that in a little more depth, because that's how you can really flesh out how some of this stuff works in practical application, is to understand both the meaning of the house that corresponds to your age and the meaning of the planet that rules that house. And if you never want to get that deep, you can just work with a very simple meaning of the house is equal to themes of the age. Yes, I keep reiterating, learn the meanings of the houses. So this is one of those kinds of things you can find online, and you can just print this out and stick it on your refrigerator. Or if you're an astrologer and you're still learning the meanings of the houses, you can have something like this printed out handy along with your Profections wheel, in order to be really facile as you share this with a client, for instance. So I'm going to give you a fun example from my life, and later I'm hoping we'll have some time to take some of your charts if you want to share as well, as long as you don't mind being recorded. But my fourth house examples I thought I'd share. So fourth house means a lot of things, and I think that, there's even more meanings that I didn't include in this little slide. But it is a house of the mother. It is a house of ancestors in your homeland and where you live. Literally, like I'm sitting in a house, or I'm sitting on this land, family of origin, your childhood home, real estate, all of that kind of thing. So when I was 3 years old, that's my fourth house profection age, my mother, the house of the mother, gave birth to my sister. And there's a little twist on this one you guys are going to love. So that's my sister's birth when I was 3. Then at age 15, I took a first trip ever outside of the homeland. So the fourth house is your homeland, your ancestral homeland, but also like, God bless America and oh, Canada, the homeland. And I went to Mexico. And it was a game-changing trip. I was so enticed. I've been to Mexico about as many times as I can since, but I was 15 and it was a fourth house age. And it was contrary to my homeland. I went to another homeland for a 2-week trip. At age 27, I moved to a new home. And I moved to another apartment in New York City. Often people will move in a fourth house profection age. At age 39, my mother passed away. It's the house of the mother. It's also the fourth house, the dark night of the soul, the nadir, the darkest night of the sky, the bottom of the chart, right? The valley. So sometimes people will find the fourth house can be very much that spiritual journey of introspection, individuation, and even to some degree, enlightenment. Age 51, I purchased an investment property. There goes that real estate part of the fourth house. And at age 63, which is coming up, I'll let you know what happens. But I have to say one thing. I think it is Ptolemy or Valens. I can't remember who, or maybe it was Firmicus Maternus. One of those ancient astrologers picked on the 63rd year as the most perilous of the fourth house ages. So I'll let you know how I get through that. I'm getting ready to get like my shaman guides with me and, prepare for that. With lots of sage for the entire age. And oh my gosh, perilous age 63. But maybe it was like life expectancy and they just thought that was, the thing. Okay, so let's talk about the Time Lord tool. Now, if you're not wanting to ever use this because you're not a real astrologer type person, you just curious about what we're talking about, that's okay. You don't have to use this piece in order to get the most out of it, but it's helpful. So every single profection age will have a house, as we already said, and each house will have a sign that rules it, whole sign house. It's always the same. You're looking at my chart here, just so you know. That's my ascendant at 16 Aquarius. Each sign has a planetary ruler. And so basically there are, and we're only using traditional rulers. We're not looking at the outer planets, Pluto, Neptune and Uranus for this technique. So you're going to stick with the fact that Aquarius is ruled by Saturn, not Uranus, and Pisces is ruled by Jupiter, not Neptune, and Pluto does not rule Scorpio, but rather Mars. So the idea here is that the temperament of your age will depend on your planetary ruler as much as the meanings associated with the house. And I'll be showing you some examples of that. So for me, you can see that fourth house at the bottom of the chart in this picture is where I explained all my fourth house stories, but you can see I have Venus there, right? And Venus is the planetary body associated with sisters. And of course, I told you that at age 3, my mother, house of the mother, had a pregnancy and led to a birth of a sister. And there's even another twist. One of my sisters now owns the childhood home. So there's always this vibe around the Venus thing that I have to consider because she is not only the ruler of my fourth house, but she's sitting in there. So big Venus themes going on when I'm in my fourth house age. So when I'm 63, I could probably speculate something to do with land, moving, a new home, something around those themes, or love in Venus, love in a new home, that kind of thing. A new homeland is possible for me. I'm the kind of girl who's happy to get up and move to Portugal. All right, so let's go ahead and talk more about the Time Lord concept. If Venus is a Time Lord of your age, like I just gave you my example in my fourth house ages, I want to consider the things about Venus that are relevant to my natal chart. So what is the strength or dignity of Venus in my sky? So this is for the astrologers here tonight. Planets can have different kinds of strength. They can be in dignity, meaning they're in the sign that they rule. They can be in exaltation, which you're in like a VIP house for them. They can be fallen and they can be debilitated or exiled. So qualities of strength of your planet can be an indicator of how an age might go. So it's not enough to say, oh, Venus is a happy, benefic, good luck planet. Yay, I'm in a Venus ruled age. Because, maybe my Venus is really in difficult circumstances in my natal chart, and that would mitigate or dampen some of the goodness. You want to look at the harsh or flowing aspects your natal Venus will make to other planets, or, vice versa. Like if your Venus was besieged between Mars and Saturn, which is going to happen for the whole world in March, from March 5th to 28th, your Venus is in difficult circumstances. She's kind of jailed, she's stuck. So keep in mind what planets are near her, what planets aspect her, and then the action of Venus in the real sky. Like right now, what's Venus doing? So for example, if you're in a Venus ruled year, your age, is a Venus ruled age, we're all looking forward to Venus exalted in Pisces, right, this year. And she's going to be exalted in Pisces for 3 weeks in April, with Jupiter and Neptune right beside her. In fact, triple conjunction at the end of April. For anyone in a Venus ruled age, independent of everything else going on in your Venus in your chart, she's in a real powerful triad of a rare triple conjunction. So pretty cool for you guys who are in a Venus ruled age right now, meaning that you're in an age connected to a house in your chart that's ruled by Venus, which would be Libra, okay, or Taurus. Any transits to natal Venus in the age that she rules, which I just covered. Yeah, I think I duplicated that concept. So who's hitting her? Is Saturn sitting on Venus in the sky? On your Venus, transiting Saturn on your Venus during a Venus ruled year. I'll give you a funny example, guys. So I couldn't wait for my next Jupiter year, right? That was 2019. Jupiter is the ruler of Sagittarius, my Sagittarius 11th house, with great gains and karmic rewards and pennies from heaven. It should have been a party, right? Yeah, except that Jupiter in the sky was in Capricorn, right? So yes, it was an okay year. I made more money in my career than I had ever done before, but there were so many other negative things that happened just because the quality of Jupiter's transit through the sky, he wasn't in very good strength, right? Capricorn is a sign for him of debility. So I was not having the best version of that Jupiter year, I have to say. I'll give you that. All right, let's keep going. Now, there's charts like this all over the internet, and you can grab one and print it out as well, just reminding you of the rulerships. That's all. Sun and Leo, Cancer, Moon, all of that stuff, and also the exaltations and the detriments. But mostly you just need to know the basic rulership. Don't worry too much about the whole other stuff for this technique when you're learning it. So I'm going to look at Donald Trump, and I'm not political. I'm from Canada. I don't have an affiliation, Republican or Democrat. I just thought it was a funny picture. So don't worry, I'm not picking on him. I just couldn't take a regular picture. I had to laugh. So, he got elected. What were his perfection time lords suggesting his chances of re-election in 2020? I already called that he wouldn't win this election, not based just on perfections. So many other things were happening, but just alone, if you're only as an astrologer use this tool for looking at world events or events in the life of your clients, you can make some pretty strong assumptions one way or the other about how things are likely to go. Perfections were not supporting Mr. Trump during the election of 2020. So he was 74 years old during the election of 2020. This was his birthday in June that tipped him into that age. That is a third house age, just so you know. 72, remember that little trick I told you guys to count through the ages of 0, 12, 24, 36, 48, 60, 72. So 72 is a first house age. That means that your second house after that must be the age of 73. We're moving around in a spiral of time, tick-tock through time. Because he was in his 74, sorry. Yeah, so 73 is his second house, 74 is his third house. Because he was in his 74th age, right? He was in the house associated with the meanings of the third house. Like his age would have had third house themes running through it. Now, you may not remember the cheat sheet thing I showed you guys or whatever, anything I've shown you yet, but there's a lot of meanings to the third house. One is siblings, one's aunts, uncles, and cousins. The extended family. One is trips and travel. Now, he was stumping all over America, right? He was going to rally after rally after rally, especially third house travel. It's usually domestic or short trips. So that's exactly what happened. He was busy going through a ton of travel to try to shore up his win in the election. Now, some few things happened that are really interesting when he was going through that age. The Venus is the ruler of his third house because Venus owns Libra. And she also is the owner of the Taurus ruled 10th house of career. So we can make some assumptions that those are hot areas of the sky during the age of 74. Third house themes will predominate. So as I said, siblings, short trips, travel, communication, and his brother died during that age, right? In August of 2020, a couple of months after he stepped into his, 3 months after he stepped into his new age, his brother passed away. Also, Venus, her natal condition matters. We have to look at that in order to get a sense of how Venus is a benefic. Everything should go swell, right? Not necessarily. Venus is in his 12th house, a difficult house, right? It's considered the house of bad spirit, for example. It can have to deal with hospitalizations as well as addiction, self-undoing, and hidden enemies. He was hospitalized for COVID, okay, during the time that Venus was the ruler of his third house, traveling through there at 74 years old. So not only did his brother die, but he was in the hospital. So you can see over and over again how you can't just, you have to nuance it a little bit rather than go, oh, swell, Venus is the benefic, things should go really well. So the transits, again, if you're really digging into predictive techniques, you want to look at what transits are happening with Venus during the age that it's ruling. So in his case, transiting Venus was retrograde in Gemini. Retrogradation is not always the best thing. From May 31st to June 25th in his 11th house of fame and influence and popularity. And he had a big fall from popularity. His poll numbers were the lowest they'd ever been during the election buildup. And that's because people thought he was mishandling the pandemic. Oh, if we'd only known what was coming. The transits by other planets to his Venus also matter. So not just what Venus may be doing through the heavenly transits in general, but what about his own Venus? And during the time of the election buildup, Saturn was retrograding. He's a malefic. He was opposing his natal Venus on September 2nd, and then he stationed direct at the same degree across the way of his natal Venus on September 29th to October 27th. So close to the election, slow moving Saturn stationing to move direct, moving at a grindingly slow pace, like literally opposing his natal Venus and really, pushing him into a hard spot. Now, the other thing about this idea of these hardships that can happen, there can be a feeling that every perfection age is not going to yield the same results, right? He was coming into another set of perfect storms that I can't cover here. It's too detailed for new astrologers. But the perfection ages they either can tell a basic story and you want to look for extra evidence, but you could almost call his failure to be elected based on a Venus in the 12th house ruling the age and being under difficult transits. Okay, so he did win the election in 2016, which I also did predict. And there are a lot of other factors, but the perfections are almost enough to call it. So let's just go for some basic descriptions here. On November 8th, 2016, election of Donald Trump story. He was only 70 at the time. If you use your perfections wheel that you can get online or the divine timing cheat sheet that I gave you for some people who signed up through my email list, you will notice that the 11th house is the age of 70. This is a happy house, a house of good spirit, right? It promises rewards. And in Vedic astrology, it's your karmic reward. It's a time when your fairy godmother and your genie in a bottle is hanging out with you. So there's no better age to win an election, right? Just playing up that house that he's traveling through. I call it traveling through. I like to think of it as, I'm moving through the house. I'm moving through this house at this age. And he was traveling through his 11th house. And if you ever take an advanced class with me, you won't believe some of the other techniques that come with the concept of traveling through the house. But just know that it's a blessed place. So we can consider luck and good things happening to him. So in his 11th house, he has Uranus, which means something unexpected, surprising, out of the blue, and no one saw it coming. Like the mainstream media didn't call it. No one saw this happening. No one expected him to win. Now, the ruler of the 11th house, remember the old idea? Who is the time lord of the age? Mercury. Mercury stationed direct on the day or retrograde on the day of the election as well. But that's another side story. Mercury is the lord of the age. Mercury's a trickster, right? The coyote, the tricky one. Loki. So yeah, it tricked the world. But on top of that, Mercury as the lord of the age, right? And the planet that has the most say in this stuff. we can assume that what Mercury's agenda will be, right, is to support the energies of good luck and good spirit in that 11th house. And we know that the Mercury will want to please the sun as well. The sun is in Mercury's home, right? And the sun will want to please Mercury. They're going to have to definitely want to support each other. And, sun means leader, king, ruler. So you can't make that up. Sudden ruler, unexpected ruler, Mercury, sun are the themes of the 11th house as well. So he really stumbled into a lucky time of his life, and he happened to be running for election at the same time. And had he run for election a year before or a year after, which you can't because of the election cycle, but if his destiny was to run during that auspicious time. So how was Mercury, his perfection year time lord, doing in that age? Okay, so on election day, transiting Mercury was exactly conjunct the IC in Donald Trump's natal chart. And then that means it's opposing the MC, right? But the IC-MC axis is like a guitar string or, a violin string. If something touches the bottom, it reverbs to the top. So he had Mercury, the lord of the age, delivering him a blessing of some sort to do with career, as Mercury strummed the guitar string of his root, the IC, and the MC, the top and the bottom of the sky. So now this is another tool, and it's somewhere between, now we're going somewhere between like simple and intermediate. So bear with me, but it's so handy that if you don't walk away with this, you're really missing out. You're really not going to want to not use this particular piece of the story. You can make monthly profections just as you can years. And so within your profection age / year, you can have, that's the big doll, right? You can have nested Russian doll, little dolls of profection months. So for example, in April of 2021, I turned 59 years old. And let's remember, I told you I'm April 4th, but starting on April 1st, I was in the new age of, the new energy of my 12th house. By the way, it is a house of hospitals and sickness. And the last time I had one, like 12 years before, I had so many issues come up with my health, and it happened all over again. So got to tell you, this stuff is really reliable. I'm just lucky it was not serious health challenges. Praise the Lord. That's because in there's context, right? My 12th house is Capricorn. It's ruled by Saturn. Saturn sits in my first house in Aquarius in great dignity, dignity by being in Aquarius, dignity by being in a first house, an angular house. So I have a strong Saturn. So even though I went through a difficult Saturn ruled 12th house age, I'm almost done. I didn't get deathly ill. I just got ill. All right. So April, let's get down with this concept here. So I'm just going to say how I would say it to myself. On the very month of April, I stepped into a new age last year, the 12th house profection age. And that very month of April becomes not only the beginning of that age, but the month becomes a 12th house month. So April of 2021 was my 12th house age beginning, and it was also my 12th house month. Therefore, it only stands to reason that when I stepped into the month of May, I must be in my first house month, the house after the 12th. And when I stepped into my month of June, I must be in my second house month, and so on and so on. And this is a very handy tool because months have themes. So I can't count how many times in a third house month, which is siblings and travel, I've gone to travel to see a sibling. It's the number of times that lines up for me is outside of the astronomical odds. Before I knew this tool, I can go back in my life and see trips to see siblings. They live in different parts of the world than me, have always seemed to line up to third house ages where I've gone to travel to see a sibling. Third house months within a third, whatever bigger, larger profection age I was in. Okay, so, and it will change every year, right? It's not the same month every year. It depends on what your profection age is. So what are these things good for? Well, if you really want to get into the gritty bitty, astrological grid of this stuff, you want to look at the ruler of the month as well, right? So you've got the ruler of the age, and then you get the ruler of the month, whatever planetary body rules the sign that fills the house of the month. So technically, the energy of planets Mercury through to Saturn will all have two parts of the sky that they command and an exaltation house. So there's three areas of intensity. So imagine I'm in, let's give you an example. If I'm in a Venus ruled year, I might, in that case, be paying attention. I'm going to talk about the months in a minute, just to all of the Venus houses, right? I'll look at the Taurus house and the Libra house and the exaltation house of Pisces and say those could be very important houses during the age of a Venus ruled year or age. But if I'm also going around the sky and looking at the Venus months, I will also be able to note that there's particular flavors I will get in that Venus ruled year connected to the goodness of it. So how can I say this to you guys? Well, I'll use my own example. Like in a Venus ruled year, for me, Venus exalts my money house. And I can tell you in my Venus ruled years, I've always killed it in my earnings. My second house has gone on fire. So you want to kind of contextualize these things. And the luminaries, sun and moon, also, of course, only have one house each and one exaltation that you're going to pay attention to. So moving on, I just want to finish up with this Donald Trump story. And I think I could also take questions at this point because it's a lot of intense content. This is the Donald Trump winning month story, right? By the time the election rolled around in November of the election year that he lost, the month of November was his 8th house month. November is simply, 8th house is simply a difficult house. It's a house of death, right? It's a house of betrayal. It's a house of secrets, what is it called? The fake election, but what was it? The mantra they had, it was called, stop the steal. But there was another thing, so even the way he lost became a whole kind of conspiracy of a betrayal and rigged elections and sneaky secret stuff. And that's very 8th house themes, but I wouldn't want to go into an election month having that 8th house be the month for that year. That would really not be a good thing. And even though Jupiter is the ruler of his 8th house, the reason it didn't go well, in my humble opinion, is that Jupiter is in aversion to the 8th house. Jupiter sitting in his 3rd house is inconjunct or 150 degrees away from the 8th house. And in ancient astrology, that means Jupiter will have nothing to do with it. It's like, I'm not paying any attention to hit Donald's 8th house. And so even though it is a benefic planet, the greater benefic, he was unable to support Donald Trump to win because the 8th house was a place that the planet could not connect to. Now, that's a lot of content, and there's a little bit more stuff I want to share, like Queen Elizabeth and some fun stuff, but I want to stop and see if anybody's utterly confused and has a very a good time for a question. You can come on the mic if you like. I can't use my cursor when I'm in the slideshow, so I can't click this chat box to see your question. So one of our Victoria hosts can also fill me in if there's a question.
No questions in the chat box yet, but feel free to add anything, anyone, or if you'd like to jump on the microphone, go ahead.
I do have a question about because the years are clear, but the months, are they determined by, like, it's a fixed placement for the months, or they change also with the birth? That was what was the key.
It's a great question. It's going to change every single year because it's kind of pivoting. Everything's rotating. So let's keep Donald Trump's chart in front of us to use it as an example. We're talking about the election that he did not win, right? And reminding us all that he was in his 3rd house profection year. And so think about it this way, the next year, right? The next year of his life would be his 4th house age. Talk about a dark night of the soul when he lost the election, right? So starting in June of 2021, he entered his 4th house age. Now, just bear with me for a minute, okay? Your 4th house age means that in June of 2021, he would have stepped into the 4th house energetically, ruled by Mars. He would be in June would be a 4th house month, as well as the beginning of the 4th house age. And then if you start to think about that, that means that July, right, would be his 5th house age, and August would be his 6th house age. And you can see they're out of step with the year before. So what was a September 6th house age in 2020 is an August 6th house age in 2021. So it rotates. So it's not fixed, it's fixed per year. Does that help? Do you understand what I said? Because I can try saying it another way.
I'm not so sure I understand the rotation. I mean, I understand what the where do you get it? Like, where do you? So if the birthday, let's say my birthday is September. Yes,
Mhm.
it's September,
Mhm.
and then my my the first month of that particular year.
Well, let's start with the basics, right? Let's talk about instead,
The
how old are you on your birthday in September?
Yeah, okay. So if I'm gonna be this September 44, I mean, let's take the year before this year. So I'm 43. So I am in my eighth house, ruled by the moon, and it's Cancer.
Okay.
That
All right. So yeah. So let's do it that way. So it's your eighth house that you started up with in September, the beginning of September. Just September is the beginning of the eighth house age, ruled by the moon, and that means that September is also the eighth house month. Correct?
Oh, so that's where you start. So September, you put it as the house corresponding to the age, and that's where you get the months from.
Yes. And so then if you pivot all around the wheel, October would have been your ninth house age. You might have ninth house month. You might have gone to a foreign land or taken a course or studied something or done something with a legal case, and then your 10th house month, right, would be November, and you might have had some success in your career and advance in your reputation, and you could just spin around the wheel that way, all the way back to the beginning of the new age.
Great. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm so glad I heard that sound. Yay. The little light bulb popped. Okay, perfect. Yeah, I know it's a lot of information at once. And for anyone new to astrology, don't worry, you can replay this and download my cheat sheet later and stuff. But once you get the hang of this tool, even without knowing about rulerships and stuff, just even always understanding that every month will have a meaning connected to the house, and every age or year will have an overall theme. So it's like an umbrella, like the umbrella of a theme. So if I'm going into my first house age, which I am in April, the whole year is like a reset button. It's all about me, my identity, how I look, my body, etc. It's like very angular. I probably will have big changes in my life. That's an umbrella of the first house age. And I might, like I suggest you all do, go back to when I was 12, 24, 36, 48, and look at how those other first house ages felt and what did I do in them. But then I can also then parse the months, and that's the value of it. So let's be prescriptive, right? Let me give you an example of how you can use this. If I'm going in April into my first house month, because it's my first house age, what does that mean about May? Someone tell me what's the second house meaning? Does anybody know? Just pop in. What's the meaning of this? One of the meanings of the second house, which would be my month of May. Give me one meaning of the second house. Someone just pop in.
Money.
Yes, thank you. Okay. So I'm launching a course, and I'm going to wait till May, right? Because I know that it's a money, honey, yay, money month. And I know that I'll do really well if that course is aimed for May, because it's going to bring in money, right? It's a money time. So, you can use this really proactively in your life. I wouldn't want to launch a course in my 12th house month. It's like being in a hermit cave and trying to launch a course. So you got, once you begin to know the meanings of the houses, you can be like apply for a job when you're in a lucky house, like your 5th or your 11th, or, just, don't go against the grain and don't go against the wind of your chart, that kind of thing. Ask for a raise in a 10th house month. You're at the top of the sky, you're looking good, you're feeling good. So those kinds of things. All right. So the months are valuable if you only know the house meanings without even diving into the deep astrology of rulership. So once you have the meanings of the houses down and the understanding of the profection wheel, you're good to go. Morgan raised his hand. Can you read his question for me? Somebody, maybe Dulcie, could you? Because I can't click the chat box.
Lori, previously I said I didn't understand, and then based on this most recent explanation, I think I do understand. And I just wanted, I'm unblocking my video. I didn't want you to see me eating dinner. What I now think I understand is that, for example, in my 4th house year, for example, okay, I'm 74. I'm in a 3rd and my birthday was in January last month.
Mhm.
So that began a third house year, but that means that this February 2022 is actually going to be a fourth house month. Is that the way it works?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
I understand.
And to pay attention to what, what you might do with things to do with the fourth house: buy, sell land, real estate, move, decorate your home, connect to a mother, go into a deep dark night of introspection, themes of the fourth. And once you get into astrology a little more, you might look at the lord of the house, like what planetary body rules that fourth house, and then pay attention to what that planet might be doing in the sky, or how that planet sits in your natal chart, that kind of thing.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. All right, guys, I'm glad I took questions, because usually one question that somebody asks is some question that another 5 or 6 people don't want to ask. So it always works out that the brave person who asked it, thank you, you're helping everyone else in this place today and who listens to this later. I thought we'd have some fun with some famous charts, and I can take your own as well, because I love this stuff. I find this, just like my sister and I say, you can't make this poop up. This stuff is so uncanny. So do you guys remember Captain Sullenberger, who landed that plane back in 1991 that was going to crash because they lost an engine, because Canadian geese flew into it as it was taking off, I think, from LaGuardia Airport? So that was a big news story, and the whole world was riveted. We were actually live time watching as he landed the plane. It was like a football game, but with 155 lives at stake if he couldn't land a plane with an engine out. And so talk about an amazing story of heroism, of acute power, of under pressure and all of that stuff, but also exaltation. He was lauded as a hero afterwards. And we're going to get into this uncanny about his profection stuff. So he would be, now this is where I want you to get really clear about this concept of the bumping into the whole sign house system and the whole sign everything. His birthday was the 23rd, I think, of January, but the plane that didn't crash was the 15th of January. But remember how I told you that you never pay attention, like in April 4th is my birthday, but all of April begins the whole new age for me of 60. So the first house age. So in the month of January of 1991, he was going to be 58 years old. Okay. So he's stepping into his 58th year, even though his birthday is a week away from the plane crash. In Profections, he's still experiencing the energy of the 58th age. Now, I'm asking my students, what profection age was he in? Because I taught this class a couple of times. I'm just going to tell you guys what the age is, and rather than having you all scramble through your charts, but it's the 11th house age. Remember, I told you that's the house of good spirit, karmic rewards. It can be the house of fame, of great gains. It's like a fairy godmother energy. God, you cannot ask for a better time for a guy to land a plane without an engine than with a fairy godmother in charge. So that's exciting. It's the same 11th house age that Donald Trump did win the election, right? And when he did win, he was in his 11th house age. This is Captain Sullenberger's sky when he was born. And you can see that his 11th house has a lot of energy in it. And that he has his midheaven here. Now, the midheaven is the high noon of the sky, and it can represent the point of our purpose in life, God's plan for our life, our outpicturing of our career and purpose as well. So he was in his very positive 11th house age. He was bumping into all of this juice in the top of the sky. I think what I like most about this for the astrologers here is that exalted Saturn. Saturn is exalted in the sign of Libra. And, it's a place of where he can be exalted, like heroic, above the ordinary, extraordinary, and in the house of fame, not to, mince it. Now, I'm not going to, this is a part of the advanced course. I'm just going to plant a seed for some of you astrologically curious folk. You can literally take this and make it into stories that are dividing the sky up into degrees equals time frames. So the first thing he's going to bump into literally is Saturn. In other words, Imagine when you cross over an age. So in the month of January, starting on January 1st, right? He literally steps across the fence from the 10th house to the 11th house. And the very first planet he would bump into, like a meet and greet, is that exalted Saturn. That exalted Saturn is representative of the very first thing that happens when he turns into that age. You can't ask for anything better than an exalted Saturn to save a plane and be a hero. Now, on top of that, Libra, the sign of books, or in balance, right? Balancing a plane with one engine out. Also the sign of books, library, Libra book. And he wrote a very best-selling book after this happened. So yeah, so that's a fun story. I mean, I just love it. Now, I didn't even take time, I don't think, to think about, well, it's this perfection month is his 11th house, and it's his perfection age because it's January. So it's doubling down on the goodness of that 11th house. So that's a fun story. And for any of the super astrology geeks there, his sun in the third house of planes, trains, and automobiles, things you drive, is sitting on the fixed star Altair, the conquest and military victory, the eye of the eagle. So he was equipped with that sun at 2 degrees in a trine to his exalted Saturn to be like a military conquest, command, and succeed eagle. Eye of the eagle to land that plane. This guy's destiny was to land that plane. Queen Elizabeth's got COVID, guys. I'm worried about her. Yikes. I'm worried because when her partner Philip died, he was in his 4th house age, which can be a death age, right? Ages 12, 4, and 8 can bring death when you're elderly. Queen Elizabeth is 95 years old. She has COVID and she is in her 12th house profection age. Could this cause her to pass from COVID? So this is her 12th house age. And you can see that the 12th house is ruled by the planet Jupiter. Jupiter rules Sagittarius. So this is a tricky one for me just because Jupiter is a benefic. So getting sick and being in a hospital can be a 12th house action. People go to the hospital in 12th house ages often, even just because they broke a leg. So the tricky part for me is that she's just elderly, and Jupiter in the ancient world is if you die under the influence of Jupiter, it's considered a blessed death and you could actually go straight to heaven. So if she passed in her 12th house Jupiter ruled age, it would be actually in the ancient world a blessing. But also the condition of Jupiter in her natal chart, right? Jupiter is sitting next to Mars, a malefic, and Mars brings things, cuts things off. Separations, endings, sudden endings, things like that. I could also maybe speculate, just for me, because I like to play with Juno. Juno is the wife of Jupiter. Juno and Jupiter, Hera and Zeus, right? The king and queen of Mount Olympus, that little flower next to Jupiter. Sorry, the second house thing that looks like a number 2 next to the thing that looks like Mars is Jupiter, if you're not an astrologer. And that little flower in the second house, okay, is the wife of Jupiter, the king and queen of Mount Olympus. I mean, as much as she may have had challenges in her marriage, according to all the TV shows, this was a marriage that was so freaking long. She probably misses her hubby. And so I'm thinking that Jupiter, Juno combination, which is how she became a monarch. She was a queen with a king or a consort or whatever he was called. I think this could mean she's going to follow him into the afterlife and she's just going to get out of Dodge, right? Like maybe COVID will trigger something a little bit later. She might overcome COVID, but be weakened or something like that. Now, her birthday was in April. And so if we go for the perfection month, which I don't think I took time to figure out, so I'll do that right now. April is her 12th house month. April is her 12th house, beginning of her 12th house year. So then we go, first house is May, second house is June, third house is July, fourth house is August, fifth house is September, sixth house is October, seventh house is November, eighth house is December, January, the ninth house is February. That's the house of God. And a lot of people in ancient world consider dying in your ninth house age was a sign of going to heaven too. And then, in February will be her 10th house age. Did I count that right, guys? I think I did. Sorry, I'm going to do it over my head again. April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, December, January, February. Yeah. So February, where she sits now, is her 10th house age. And then lastly, March will pivot her into her 11th house age. In the astrology of death and dying, the midheaven is the gate to heaven. It's the high noon, and it's a portal, and it is a known exit point for dying. So her midheaven is in the month of March. Maybe she's going to walk out of this life in the month of March, or maybe not. But Mars rules. Scorpio is Mars's sign. Mars is sitting next to her Jupiter. Jupiter is a ruler of the age. If she's going to pass, she's going to pass in March. If she makes it through March, in my humble opinion, just based on profections without looking at anything else in her sky, she's probably going to be okay. Alrighty. Okay, let's talk about Putin. There's a war going on, and he's, of course, launched the war against Ukraine, which is the ancient territory of Russia, and one third of the people speak Russian and are ethnically Russian and want to be a part of Russia. So we be really clear here. It's a terrible thing that people are getting hurt and dying, but also it's a very complicated history. So Putin is sitting here, and he is now sitting. Oh, yes, Morgan has a question. Go ahead, Morgan. Yeah, hello.
I do not have a question. That was accidental. I don't know how that happened.
Oh, it's okay. You can, there's a unraised hand thing when you go to the reactions button, and you can unraise your hand. Maybe it was just never went back down. Okay, no big deal.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, no big deal. So let's talk about this age that he's at, right? He is now 69 years old. We'll give you guys some practice. So someone want to tell me what age 69 is in terms of the profection age? Just looking at your cheat sheet.
10th house.
Yeah. So do you know the meanings of the 10th house, the person who answered? No?
So career
Mm-hmm.
and what you're known for in this world.
Yeah. And your reputation. It's also a striving house, it's where we have ambition. It's kind of like our achievement, striving, success zone of the chart, right? So when we get into 10th house energy and we're in that field of energy, like he crossed into that on his birthday, he's really feeling, I'll be showing his chart in a minute, he'll be really feeling, like he has to be the king at the top of the sky in some way. It's going to activate his striving, ambition, his concern with his reputation and all of that. All right, so let's take a look at his chart, because we're going to look at the details of how that looks and what it might say about the invasion. So he was born in 1952 in October, and you can see that his 10th house is where his midheaven is. That's his high noon and God's plan for his life and his purpose, and really the place where he shows up, where you see the visible results often of his ambition. With Pluto on the midheaven, that's classic mafia boss / dictator in its own right? But sometimes it's not. Some Pluto midheaven people are like, super powerful in the world in some way, but it can also look like the darker side of Pluto. And you can see the South Node is there, which is a place of loss or a place of surrender, or it looks like a horseshoe for the rest of you who aren't sure. 10th house horseshoe up there, upside down. That is like a place of loss, a surrender, a disappointment. Now, you could say that may not bode well. Technically, you could go, oh my God, he invaded Ukraine and it's a place of the South Node. So maybe some things will not go the way he hoped in this pursuit of some real estate next door to Russia. The other thing is that the ruler of the 10th house is important, right? And the ruler of Leo is the sun. So what we look at is, how is that sun faring when he was born? How is it looking in the sky when he was born? And it's sitting in his 12th house. Now, the 12th house is many things, like, as I said, hospitals, illnesses, seclusion, can lead to liberation, moksha, enlightenment, but it's also backroom deals and negotiations, secret talks, and treaties, and secret backroom stuff. It's also the house of hidden enemies as well. And so he's got all of those things that are connected to his invasion in this age, right? Could there be plots behind his back, by his own generals? Could there be secret backroom negotiations going on? Maybe he's in charge of it. Helping the situation might be that the sun is conjunct an exalted Saturn, the same exalted Saturn that allowed Sullenberger to land the plane is also conjunct Vladimir's son. So if there is a hidden enemy, maybe he prevails, or if there's a backroom negotiation, Libra treaties, communications, stuff like that. Maybe this is a thing where he gets some disappointment, but managed to negotiate a chunk of Ukraine, to return to Russia. The other thing about that is that you want to look at the and the natal condition of his sun as well, right? The sun is in a sign of its detriment in Libra. So it's in a sign that it's not preferring to be in. It's a sign of its fall. So that doesn't necessarily speak to great success for his invasion either in the long arc of the story. And maybe it's because of the sanctions that will, put Russia in big economic difficulty, grab a bit of land and have your economy sink or something. So a sun in its fall, a south node in the 10th, it tells me right away that this is a mixed bag for him, a power grab with a lot of maybe consequences to it. Then the next thing is, what about the profection month in which he launched this invasion? Let's all do that one together. Can't remember what it was. So if his birthday's in October and it's his 10th house month and 10th house age beginning, that means that November is his 11th house and December is his 12th house. And December, he was putting a bunch of troops all around, moving more and more troops into place. Okay. Sneaky backroom stuff. 12th house was December. January was his first house. And then February of 2022 is his second house month within a 10th house age. All right. Someone want to comment on what you think is going on and why this invasion was launched when he's in his second house month? Any astrologers here have a clue by just looking at that second house planet?
Well, it's Mars.
Yes, the god of war in a fire sign, sitting in his second house, right? You really can't make this up, but I'm going to tell you guys another little trick that I don't teach except in my advanced class, but this is too good to pass up. The month of February, all right, a month has roughly 30 days in it. There are exceptions, like February has 28 days or 29. And there are 30 degrees to every single house. So the month of February, you can see that there is at 26 degrees Mars, the god of war. Well, that could be February 26th, except that February only has 28 days. So that's the equivalent of about February 24th, when he actually invaded Ukraine. Once you start using this technique to go, oh, I'm in my so-and-so profection month. If you start to look at the degrees of the planets within that house, if there are any, you'll notice that the days are correspondent to roughly the degrees, except for February. They're pretty straight up. So for example, if you go back and Vladimir Putin was in his first house profection month back in January, you can see that around 11 degrees or the 11th of January, some Venus thing was going on. What does Venus rule? Negotiations, peace, treaties. And if you go back and look what was happening with Vladimir Putin around, let's say, the 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th, and maybe 13th of the month, you're going to see that Macron was reaching out to him or something. I don't know. I mean, I don't remember. But you're going to see that there would have been some attempt at bargaining a treaty or some peace or negotiation that Venus might have tried to pull off. And it obviously didn't succeed. But that's probably for other reasons I won't go into because it's too complicated, but I can see why it wouldn't have worked. And you can also look at his February and say, what's the ruling planet of the second house? Well, the ruling planet of Sagittarius is Jupiter. And Jupiter is sitting over here in the sky in a square to Pluto, the god of power and control and tyranny and despotism and mafia boss and stuff like that. You can really parse the details. Pluto is really squared off in a T-square with Putin's ambitions for power. Technically, even you could put the 7th house as the house of other nations if I took Vladimir's chart and made it into a mundane chart. Okay, so now what we're going to do, because Ukraine is another nation, he's invading another nation. So I covered that stuff already for you guys. Now let's do you guys. If anyone has any energy left, we can spend some time doing you. If you need a pee break, get up and pee. But I won't notice you're gone. I don't need a pee break. I'm good. So let's move to you guys, and I'll stop the share and I'll come back to you, and we can actually, if you want, take questions. I can pull up a chart that you might have, all that kind of stuff. Let me get out of this screen share. All righty. Oh, it only took me an hour. That's really good. I thought it was going to be much longer. All right. So I do have a clip. I'm a very fast talker. I present really at a good pace. Which is why when you have a reading with me, you get a lot of content. But thank God for the recording. But for those of you who are completely confused, basic questions are a good point to start at, and then we can go into details of maybe sharing a chart or two with you with your charts. So basic questions, anyone? About how this works, about where you're confused, about anything, concepts about we covered, like Time Lord concepts. Yeah, it's going to be on YouTube. And if you signed up on my mailing list for this, I will just also send you a copy in the mail of the recording. Okay. Alrighty. No questions. You guys are so great. Does anybody want to be a guinea pig, and we can put your chart up and look at your sky and talk about you? You'll be on YouTube though, so don't be shy. If you're shy about that, don't. Or we can cut that part of the video off if you like. That's another option. But we can go with, come on board if you're not too shy about sharing something in your sky. Hi, Cynthia.
Yeah, Cynthia has her hand up. You can come on the camera, Cynthia. Yeah.
There you go. I volunteer. Oh.
There's always somebody who's brave. All right. So do we have a question about your chart, or do you want me to actually look at it with you and talk about it with you?
Yeah, we can look at my chart.
Okay, so I'll pull it up. I think you're in my, are you in my client base? I can't remember. Good.
Yeah.
You know what, guys? I looked at my Zoom calls because I'm grandmothered in. I've had Zoom for like 4 years or something like that. And they're supposed to delete my recordings, you know, and they never do. And so I have like, I don't know, 3,200 client recordings still all in my system. And I'm laughing. That means that I've done 3,250 readings or something like that. I'm like, oh my God. Okay, so let me pull you up,
I have
Cynthia.
my glasses on. That's why you couldn't recognize me, probably.
No. It's just, I think it's because that's the whole point. I think I've seen so many people that I recognize names more than faces these days. Okay, Cynthia, I'll grab you. Cynthia. All right. And you know, a demo is really good because it really we can really get the whole thing down a bit more. There you go. I found you. You were born June 3rd, 1988, correct?
Yeah.
All righty. Select. All right. And I'll share it with you guys. Every now and then I get a dreaded feeling that Zoom is going to somehow bill me for my 3,000 stored readings. All right. Okay. So Cynthia, let's talk about your sky. So let's see how much you've absorbed so far in terms of just getting the basic idea of the age conceptions of profection ages, right? So on your birthday in June, back behind us, 2021, how old were you then?
Last year?
Yeah, like what age are you now?
Yeah. Oh, 33. I'm 33.
Yeah. Okay. So, and do you know which house that is?
I will be in the 10th house.
Yeah. Okay. So I would love for you, first of all, to tell us how it feels to step into your 10th house, which is ruled by the planet Mercury, right? The ruler of Gemini, with so much going on there. That's a very busy house. It's a stellium. So, you know, you can contextualize this, guys. I want you to think about it like there's a fence between 12 houses, and every age, every month of your age, you cross over a fence. So look what happens to Cynthia. She crosses into the 10th house and she's literally got a party going on there. So how has it been going in the themes of career, reputation, success and achievement since you stepped across that gateway of June?
It's been very complicated because I don't know what I want to do with my career. So it's been all over the place and nowhere.
Okay. And so when you say it's complicated, that is a busy, busy house, right? Mm-hmm. Are you an astrologer studying, or are you just a curious person?
Both. Yeah.
Okay.
Both.
Then I'm trying to, so which planet is the most important planet in your 10th house?
I would say Mercury.
Yeah. So he's the ruler and he's at home in domicile and he's in the 10th house, which gives him strength. So he's a very powerful planet. Now, since he's the boss of everyone in there and it's his party, right? I mean, you really want to start thinking as a general principle at this age about the condition of the planet, which we know is a pretty strong planet. And we also might want to think about the actual transits of Mercury through the sky this year, you know, and what he's up to until your birthday, June to June, like in that time frame, right? So for example, let me ask you, how was it going for you during the retrogradation of Mercury as he was retrograding through Aquarius and, you know, and he turned around in Capricorn. So he finally went direct, you know, in Capricorn back in February my brain, I got too many planets, I think the 14th. So what happened when he was retrograding in the house that in your 6th house and getting forward momentum in your 5th house of you know, fun, play, and pleasure? Like, did you go back any over old ground with colleagues or coworkers in your 6th house? What was he trying to help you with during his synchronistic retrograde and his long stay in that Aquarius zone? Because, you know, the retrogradation gives him 2 months of a lot of Aquarius life.
I think it was more of my family relationships more than my household kind of era. I don't really have coworkers or anything. I have my own business. So,
okay. All right.
yeah.
All right. So one of the things about the way that feels to me, I mean, you can count on Mercury retrograde for anybody who's in a Mercury ruled perfection age. Mercury retrogrades are divine interventions. You know, they're, what do you call it? Like when someone has to go to rehab or something, you know, they're really an intervention by the gods. Okay. So it's not over yet because, I mean, you know, the movement of Mercury through the sign of Aquarius is very important. And whatever he's trying to do there, retrograde and direct motion again, is extremely important to your journey. This is going to be, you know, bar none, one of the most important Mercury periods in terms of where he's going and what he's doing in the sky. So just kind of stay really tuned to his transits throughout the year. You know, watch where he goes, pay attention to what he's doing, who he's hobnobbing with and stuff like that. Like, let's see, you know, for example, for you, anybody in a Mercury ruled year, right? Because he's trying to up level her career, basically. He's going to help her with career decisions. Pay attention to the Mercury Cazimi when Mercury goes into the heart of the sun. And when is he Cazimi again? He's coming up for one in the month of March, if I remember correctly, or am I forgetting my Mercury Cazimi? I'm looking at my big chart for the month on my big bulletin board over there, but I'm squinting. Well, I can't remember when, but it's sometime, I think, coming up. But also, Mercury will sextile Uranus on March the 17th, right? Mercury will be moving into sextile alignment with the planet Uranus. So why would that matter to you? Well, because it could be very significant in some fundamental way to your reality, since he's the ruler of your life or your story this year, not your life, just this year. Your life is, ruler of your life is Mercury too, your Virgo rising. So pay attention as well, back to the idea of time. Astrology is a time system. It's what it is. It's a symbolic map of time. That's really what it is. And your 10th house is a map of time that will be 12 months long. So, you know, you will have 12 months of journeying through your natal 10th house. Technically, if you think about it this way, everybody, if there are 12 months in a year and there are 30 degrees in a sign, then if you divide that into 2, 15 degrees is 6 months in, right? So around 6 months in, June, July, August, September, October, November. In the month of November, you're crossing around just past the sun, right? So if November is the 15th degree, your sun is sitting in the month of October. So solar events, leaders, power, rising to more, you know, leadership or being more seen, someone in authority connecting with you, maybe, you want to look at that and really parse that out. Similarly, 8 months is equivalent to 20 degrees in the house of your 10th house. So we know that roughly 8 months in, you're getting close to your midheaven. June, July, August, September, October, November, December, January. I'm a finger math person. So January, so really January, February, you're really dealing with your midheaven. February, March, you're dealing with midheaven Mercury themes, really. It's really in your face, right? I would expect a breakthrough energy around the 10th month in. Mercury at 26 degrees is close enough to about the 10th month of your story. So, keep in mind 10 months from June, right? So June, July, August, September, October, November, January, March. Yeah, March. So March, April. So March, April. Big breakthrough energies are coming through because you're really bumping into Mercury. I want you to think you're walking through your 10th house and you come face to face with Mercury. Okay, so what about the question of the months for you? Let's talk about that. And I'm just curious, being stuck is interesting when you have a stellium up there. That is a very classic confusion. Like there's too many people near the midheaven. Who are you going to listen to? But for a prescription for you, Mercury is the guy to listen to, right? He is the key to all of this. You should be thinking about mercurial professions, marketing, mercantile, messaging, writing, speaking, those sorts of things. What do you do, Cynthia?
I used to work in sales, so.
Okay. All right. And you want to do something new?
Yeah, I started doing yoga as my business, and now I'm kind of thinking I'm in that position of maybe I should go back to my sales and just make money. That's how I make my.
Okay, so with Jupiter in your 9th house, that's like a yoga teacher ruled by Venus sitting on Mercury in your 10th house. It could be a problem with the aversion, but on the other hand, here's the thing: Mercury and Venus together like that. I mean, you should be like an absolute kick-ass promoter, publicist, marketer. You should be able to like literally sell snow to, an Inuit person. I mean, there's something about that combination that tells me that you just have to get your promotional groove going. If you want to make a lot of money teaching, maybe your glitch is you have to unhinge from, not charging your worth or not like getting glitzy with your promotions about what you're doing. I mean, Venus Mercury people like that, especially in the midheaven, are like the madmen from Madison Avenue. Oh my God. You should be playfully advertising yourself. Okay. The month that you're in. Okay. So let's not do a whole natal reading. Let's talk about her month, guys. So we're doing a demonstration and we'll take another chart. Let's remember that in June, she was in her 10th house month, therefore 10th house year, 10th house month. So June, July, August, September, October, November, December, January, February, March. So March is the 7th house. February is your 6th house. Okay. So I just finger math my way around the chart. I would say to you that in March, you're going to get some opportunities coming to you. That's really going to open up some new doors. Why? Like, because in March, Jupiter's the ruler of your month, Mr. God of opportunity, right? Mr. God of luck and breakthroughs. Jupiter is fine in Taurus, and he's in the house of teaching and yoga and stuff, 9th house stuff. And you've got a lot of action. Mars is, swimming in the Pisces Sea there. So I would like really track that, Cynthia, and go, what's going to happen in March, maybe near the 7th of the month, or where the North Node descendant is, maybe the 18th to the 24th of March. What could possibly happen there that might give you Jupiter opportunity regarding your stuck feeling in your new career path? And, it could be very literal, being asked to teach a class or co-teach a class, or being asked to share or teach something in a new environment, and you're re-inspired. So I see that between March being Mercury's month for you and Jupiter ruling the month of March, proactively, I think you're going to have clarity already. And that's how you need to look at those months, 6th house months are kind of like quagmire, right? Not a great place. Intercosmos between the world's house. So you're coming in March out of that February 6th house into the light of day above the horizon. And I think you'll see some clarity there. Okay.
Okay.
That makes sense. Yeah. So that's a great example, by the way, of somebody with a very busy 10th house. Okay, Annika, what should we do? Do you want to do your chart? Do you have a question?
Oh, no, I had a question. I was just wondering, how is it that Jupiter is that month, ruling that month?
Yes, because, okay, so I was using finger math. I'll double check my math, but her 10th house month and year began in June of 2021. So that's like June is the 10th house, July is the 11th, right? We're going around August, September, October, November, December, January, February, March. So by the time I get to March, I'm in the 7th house. And the sign, the symbol of that 7th house is Pisces, that little green symbol. And yeah, Pisces is ruled by Jupiter.
Okay,
But you have a great point, right? Because that means in May, she's going to bump into her 9th house where Jupiter sits. And that should be quite luscious as well. Nothing like bumping into Jupiter. So May could be a really good teaching opportunity, because if you're teaching, that's Jupiter, and 9th house is yoga stuff, or, arcane knowledge or spiritual stuff. Anyone who was Jupiter in the 9th house really wanted to be a spiritual leader at some level. So it's a tricky place to have Jupiter when you have also a stellium in the 10th house, like how to find spiritual path aligning with work, or how to have both of those. Great question.
So you look at both the ruler of the house of that month and also where that ruler is natally.
Yes. You can take it as a simple thing for non-astrologers. You can just go, oh, in March, Cynthia's in a Pisces. It's a Jupiter ruled energy, and we know Jupiter's a lucky planet. And you don't even have to, you could just stop there. Some luck that month, some growth, some expansion. But you can also go, oh, and the 7th house means contracts, negotiations, and legal agreements, just so you know that, as well as business partners and love partners. So those themes could be very prevalent, but always contextualize it. The priority is her career, right? Now, the 10th house, her reputation, her career, that's what the sky is asking for her to focus on. So likely when I see her 7th house March, is probably collaborations or business partnerships of some kind, Ren is here. We just finished. Ren's my archetypal astrology teacher. I can't admit him, or can I? All right.
I just did.
He gets oh, thank you. He gets the replay of that. So that was a really good question, Annika. And yes, as you get into astrology a little more deeply, it's almost a little bit like layers, right? Like a Russian doll nesting thing, or an onion with layers of meaning, and you begin to go deeper and deeper. You can really get a lot of complexity of meaning, but the simple profection ages are all you need, with just the meanings of the houses, to get a very solid understanding of what is going on in your chart in any given age. I'd love to do one more person's chart, particularly if you feel like, does anyone have a difficult time they're going through and they're really stressed out and wondering what the hell is happening to their life? We can look at their chart and we can see why. Morgan, did you want to share your chart?
Sure.
Okay. So let's put you up and let's see why. Yeah. Do you think you're having a difficult time right now?
I'm feeling stuck and have uncertainty about a variety of things that are presenting as available.
Okay, let's put you up. You're in my system. Give me a minute. All right. Oh my goodness. I can't type. All right. I think you're my only Morgan, so it should be simple to find you. Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to share your script, the chart with everyone so we can see it together. It would be helpful to learn together. All right, there we go. So you were born in 1948 and your birthday was in January. So you're just coming into a new profection age as of January. How old are you? Because my brain won't do math right now.
74. So
Thank you. Yeah, we did. And we talked about it earlier, but my brain is offline. Okay. So the age of Donald Trump when he was losing the election. Yeah. The 3rd house age. Okay. So your 3rd house profection age is upon you, right? In January. And so it's your first, January itself represents a month of the 3rd house. So themes of 3rd house prevailing. And also it's the beginning of a 3rd house story. Now, so sometimes I would say to people, by the way, anytime you have malefics in a particular house and Pluto's not necessarily a traditional malefic, but he can be cause death, or rebirth or intense conflict and crisis. And Saturn is sitting there. You could just kind of go right away, what planets are in the house. And that's kind of a challenging couple of planets you're dealing with right away, straight up off the bat, and reminding you it is the house of siblings. So some of these challenges may not be yours. Your siblings or sometimes aunts, uncles, and cousins could be having the problems, and you could be having collateral, energy coming at you. I find one of the mistakes of contemporary astrology is to make the whole chart about the individual when, the 7th house is your marriage partner and the 3rd house is your sister or brother. It's not always your issue. So you could have a sick sibling or a sibling facing mortal peril at the 3rd house age. Just like Donald Trump's brother died in his 3rd house age, we talked about that, right? And he has Chiron there, the wounded healer. So wounded sibling relations. I should also pointed out something else. That wasn't all those nasty things were coming out by his niece as well. Siblings, aunts, uncles, cousins, nieces, when she was writing the book about him. Okay, so let's talk about you. You're feeling stuck, but you're feeling stuck and you just started a new energy. So why are you stuck? You might be feeling stuck already because February, if your 3rd house profection month year is January is the 3rd house, then you're in the 4th house in the month of February. So to remind everybody what the 4th house is like, right? It's the bottom of the sky, the darkest part of the night, the nadir. It really is the bottom of the night. I mean, for him, because his root is here, right? So it's the really dark place for you. And so the IC is there. So it really does represent the opposite of the high part of the sky, the midheaven. So, sometimes 4th house periods of time, whether it's a profection age or a month, can be introspective, can be solitary, can be challenging, right? It's a very hidden place. So there's just that. So feeling stuck, that could be that. So what are some of the concerns you're having that make you feel stuck? What's going on besides the fact that you have 2 difficult planets in your 3rd house age, ruled by the sun, who's in the 8th house of also difficult things. So death, betrayals, secrets,
So yes,
interior.
experiencing challenges in association with family, and stuckness had to do with articulating, but also sharing perceptions of reality that are not concordant with the
mainstream narrative.
Yes, right.
Okay, so so that is definitely something that might be really bothering you right now when you have Mars in your 4th house, which is conflict and combat, especially in Virgo, about, medicine or health. Like Virgo rules medicine and health, and your views on, let's say, the current health climate regarding, let's say, protocols for COVID are your valid concerns, and you have them. But with that Mars there, you're bumping into a god of conflict and around health things, right? And the devil's in the details with Virgo. So, well, you may be able to whip out the information from the Lancet or, the British Medical Journal or something. It doesn't mean everyone else is listening. So you're bumping into this challenge right now. And that's fine. And, the death of something, Pluto in the house of siblings, can be a very cautionary note for you not to push it. And otherwise you might estrange a sibling if a sibling is, fiercely objecting to your views. But as you go through the 4th house month, you've got the 5th house on the horizon, right? So 5th house is good. 5th house is some more fun and play and joy and pleasure and enthusiasm and inspiration. And, it's ruled by a benefic Venus. So, you might just have to grit and bear the month of February. It's almost over.
Uh-huh.
Right. Like, so if I were you, I'd be looking at, like, it's a short-term narrative. It's like something sunny skies are coming, or something positive is showing up for you as you shift into that 5th house energy. Now, because the sun is the ruler of your profection age, your 3rd house profection age, everything goes back to both the themes of the 3rd house, which we covered: trips and travel, siblings, extended family, skills-based learning, stuff like that. But, the sun is up there in that 8th house, and there's just no 2 ways about it, right? It's not the easiest house either. It has a lot to do with money as well, especially money from bank loans, mortgages, investments, stock investments, cryptocurrency investments even. And, you may be really focused a lot on issues to do with those other monies, including inheritance monies, by the way. And issues to do with death and mortality as well. Both Pluto in that third house and the eighth house has to do with death. It is considered the house of death. It's called the house of death in Hellenistic astrology. So you might find yourself really squarely facing those things, but it doesn't mean it's about you. And that's the other thing, especially with the third house. It could be aunts, uncles, cousins, siblings. It could be other people's stories.
Yeah, I'm the executor of my aunt's estate with a report due within a month.
Okay, so yeah, exactly. And when you think you'll complete the execution of the estate?
Well, hopefully this year.
Okay, so you're going to be in the thick of eighth house things, right? With the sun up there. The good news is you do have some Mercury support in that part of the sky. So the devil's in the details and, and getting it all done in a kind of Capricornian, sensible, practical way. My feeling is that, you're going to, I say my feeling because I've done a lot of charts and a lot of astrology. I think you're going to have a sibling in distress at some point during the year, and it won't really be your problem, but you're going to get pulled in. So something like that with that sibling house, Pluto, Saturn thing going on. And you also should pay attention to the sun in the sky. Why? Because the sun is the time lord of the age. For example, the sun will conjunct Neptune on March 12th, 13th or so. That's a very magical portal of divine inspiration, ability to dream the big dreams of what you want, a connection to, your higher self. So I really would think about, watching that sun. And when the sun does something as amazeballs as the March conjunction around the 12th and 13th with Neptune, you should be really down for connecting to that energy. I told you that March was a better month, right? So it is. You've got Neptune at 12 degrees of your fifth house. That's roughly the 12th of the month. And that's when Neptune will conjunct the sun in the sky for the whole world in Pisces. So, which is, by the way, your career house. So, you have to look at the sun for you during the journey of the year. What is it doing in the sky? And what aspects is the sky making to your natal sun, right? Is there anything pummeling your sun during the age that you're at? Okay. So, thank God Pluto's gotten past your sun. So that's not a problem, but harsh aspects to 21 degrees of Capricorn by transiting planets can really be tough for you. So Mars will be going through Aries, right? Squaring your sun in that inheritance and money investment house. And that Aries transit of Mars, which I think is the last week of May throughout June to the first week of July, but that's from my memory. So don't count on that. Go check it out. But when Mars is going through Aries, squaring your sun, that will be a challenging point with maybe siblings or inheritance matters or stuff like that. And that you could also look for times that planets are benefically aspecting your sun as well. So you can plot, some of the ebbs and flows of difficult times and easier times by what the sun is doing in the sky as it transits the heavens and what planets transiting the sky are doing in relationship to your own sun. Does that make sense to you? You've taken a couple classes with me, I think.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's really getting down to the nitty gritty with that stuff. But the big thing I'm seeing is that Mars transit in my memory, I think it is basically most of June, but at one point it will be in a direct square to your sun. So that will be gnarly. That could be real conflict around money with somebody, power or control, money stuff going on.
Yep. That's also on the horizon.
Yeah, that's definitely to be cautionary about. When you look at your perfection months, everyone just hang in there with me. This is his happy March. Yay, it's very dreamy, some fun at last, maybe some love with a loved one, maybe a time to visit a lover or something. So that's March, April. But then in May, he's going into his seventh house age, and then June, his eighth house month. And those seventh house isn't so bad, right? But June, and we'll know that Mars will square his sun and you're in the eighth house yourself. So you can see a lot of intensity in the late part of May and June based both on the months you're in, and also in the overall theme of that third house. I always say don't divorce a family member over this if it ever gets down to disagreements about worldviews on viruses, for instance, or in disputes around money and inheritance. Or don't let them divorce you. All righty. So that
Yep.
was a good chart about a difficult time, and we can see some of why that could be true. All right. We're doing great. Let me check the time. Okay. And I know that some people came in late, and if you did, no worries. So there's a full replay available, and you'll get lots of time to go back over this content. I think this is supposed to go to 8. I don't know if we want to keep going for one more question or one more example. Dulcie, I'll let you lead.
Yeah, it's entirely up to you. I know that I saw Mary Flora also volunteered to have her
Okay.
chart.
All right. I didn't see that. I'm happy to look at that. Mary, do you want to come on the mic?
Yes, I'm on.
Hi. Hi.
Hi.
I think you're one of my clients, aren't you?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to grab your chart. Let me take away this one and open up another. All right. Open up Mary. It's such a great name, Mary Flora. I love that name. It makes me think of some, like, I don't know, exotic perfume. All right. Why is you're not showing up? Let me just go manually through my my system. I upgraded the software a month and a half ago, and sometimes people's charts don't pop into my sky when I F Flora F G. Oh, there we are. That's so bizarre. If for some reason you're not saved in my system, which is really rare, but I could have used astro.com for you. So I'm going to add you manually then. Okay, so let's go ahead and put your chart in here. Just let me open up the new chart section. Okay. Mary, what's your day of birth? Month, day, year?
April 15th, 1960.
Do you know what time you're born?
I don't remember.
This is tricky. So the thing with Profections is that it requires a birth time for me to even do you as an example, because it's going to form the house system. I don't know why you're not in my chart system. I apologize, but I just scrolled the whole software. Let me just put you under just Mary, and I didn't use your last name. Let me take a look. How long ago did I see you? Like a long time ago?
Well, I know that we had a couple of readings in early 2000s.
Oh, then you should be in here. I was only using this software for the last 3 years. I'm looking just in case it's just under plain old Mary. I can't, you're not in here. So I'm so sorry. I can't really do it without a time. Otherwise, we're just going to be speculating. I apologize about that, Mary.
Okay.
But when you go home and you do your own chart, and you get your right birth time, and you just cast it at astro.com, then make sure you pick extended chart selection from the menu. And then from there, you'll see a house system chart menu, and you can pick whole sign houses.
Okay. Thank you.
And how old are you?
I'm 60. I'll be 62 in April.
Yeah. So just at a very broad brushstroke, without even knowing the Time Lord and stuff like that, right? I mean, 62 is your second house age that you're coming into in April. So you're going to be focused more on second house themes. That's in the cheat sheet that I'm going to give to everybody. I'll put it, Dulcie could put it at the bottom of the YouTube video, but it's like money, resources, possessions, voice, food that you eat and put in your mouth, things that you digest like through your mouth. Sometimes it has a lot to do with your vocation, because our earnings and our voice and our vocation are very tied to the second house. So, but very often it's just a money house. And so in some ways you're going to be focused on more on earnings or money or things to do with that part of the sky. So there's broad themes that are going through there. And once you cast your chart and you know what sign it is, then you'll be able to go into more detail and say, oh, look at that. You know, my second house is ruled by Pisces, and it means that Jupiter is the ruler of my profection age. Yay, Jupiter. You know? I'm loving that Jupiter in Pisces right now. Oh my God, it's so much fun. All right. So sorry about that. I apologize that I don't have you on my system, but I don't know where you are. Just not there. Did anyone else have a question or a thought or a concern or a confusion? Not to leave anyone stunned. Oh, Tatiana, you're muted. Are you talking?
Yeah, well, I just thought this was pretty awesome. And I was just thinking of my chart, and I know that I'll be in my 4th house month in May, and that's where I'm actually moving to a big and also transiting Jupiter right now is transiting through my 4th house. So
oh, that's so nice.
we're a big property. So it's
Oh,
just
that's so beautiful. Oh, that's right. We talked about that. You're what you're up to on the island, right? Yes. Okay. So, and what is the overall perfection age you're in?
8th house.
What the 8th house?
Yeah, and yeah, there's stuff around inheritances. My, a lot of that has happened. So I find it fascinating that I'm dealing with a lot of like money things and inheritances, and my parents giving us inheritance money, and trying to find property and buying things and selling property. I've been selling property to buy more property, and again, I'm kind of confused about investments though, like because 8th house tends to kind of create loss, and I'm like, I don't know what to do about that.
Well, not necessarily, it depends on the condition of your 8th house and the ruler of your 8th house, right? So you have to.
Where's the moon?
Yeah. And so what condition is the moon in your sky when you were born?
Not great. It has an opposition to Pluto. It's in Aries, so it's in a not great place.
It's not terrible. It's not terrible.
5th house, Aries.
Uh-huh.
But it also trines Neptune. So it's a trine Neptune. So the Neptune, I think, is going to help a lot through these, because of the amount of Pisces Neptune energy that's going on.
Well, the other thing to think about when the moon's the ruler of the perfection age is also what phase is the moon in? Is it a full moon when you're born, a last quarter moon, a first quarter moon? Do you remember new moon, balsamic moon? Sometimes those things really can help you see the way the age will go. The theme of the natal moon's lunar phase can really play out in the year.
That's very interesting. So if my sun is in the 10th house and my moon is in the 5th house, so that's it's kind of entering the 3rd quarter.
Yeah, but it sounds to me like it's no, because if your sun is in the 10th and the moon is in the 5th, you're coming off of a full moon.
The full moon. Yeah, exactly. Coming out of the full
moon. You're probably going to look like a full moon, like in the sky, because it's about 45 degrees off of the perfection that's still full. So you're probably a full moon. So full moon babies, right? Go big or go home. If you're not taking up too much room, you're, walking. If you're not, what is that thing? If you're not walking on the edge, you're taking up too much room. And big moon babies are, willing to dare and take big risks and, splash out there. It's a big risk you might be taking to do this property thing with this big group of people and, that all of that. But you have a big full moon energy, so that might go really, really well for you with daring do Aries energy to boot, pioneer, risk taking, fire, initiative, And as long as your moon's not in horrible dignity, I wouldn't worry too much about it being an 8th house time. You know what I mean? Like it's
the 8th house.
A bit of
like other themes are playing in my 8th house as well, but are more related to, sexual healing and stuff like that I was like, oh, okay, I don't know I can see the themes actually play out a little bit. On solar return, it's Venus was in the 8th house. Like there's a lot of 8th house,
really heating up for you. Yeah. What is is it a nice empty 8th house or is it populated?
It's a nice empty 8th house, except for Black Moon Lilith at the 27th degree. That's the population it has. So
that's a very hot degree after that eclipse on Algol and Taurus. But but that's a whole other story you and I can talk about. Let me put it this way. I think that, having an empty 8th house is a bonus point for going through an 8th house perfection age. The moon is not in great debility because Pluto's not even a planet in the ancient tradition. So as long as your moon isn't like not, squashed by Saturn or opposed by Mars or something, it's not doing too badly at all. So it should be, yeah. And just FYI, the 5th house can be money, luck through speculation, taking risks with money, everything from lottery tickets and horse races and casinos to speculative or risky investments in the markets or in real estate. So, connecting those dots too, the way the 5th house can play out.
I am speculating a little bit with investments, and I'm a little bit worried as to how long should I keep it going. That would be my only concern. When should I pull out? Because
I hear you. That's a good question. So that's where you get your horary chart done. Oh my God. Wow. Wow. I'm excited to see that your 4th house month is tied to moving. You'll find this, guys, that, 4th house month has something to do with your home, expanding your home, moving. A 7th house month could be business partners or marriage stuff really picking up. A 10th house month is career things picking up. It's very literal. It's just so literal. So this was a pleasure. I'm thinking we're going to wind down if that's okay with everybody. I poured a glass of wine as a treat when we're done. I'm just waiting so that I can sip away. Oh my God, it's a temptation, but it's because I did a 21-day wine reset, which means no wine for 21 days. And now a couple of days ago, I said, well, that was great. Now I'm going to have some wine again.
Now it's done.
Hey, this is where the asteroid is the devil's in the details, everyone. I was born with asteroid Dionysius conjunct my Venus, and asteroid Bacchus conjunct my Mars, especially Mars in the 2nd house of things we put in our mouth. So I'm doomed. Bacchus and Dionysian are the wine gods, and revelry. And if Ren is still here because it came and went, I know they also have to do with connecting to the divine through altered states of consciousness. So I got to get my mushrooms going that I'm afraid to try yet. Alrighty, guys.
Well, thank you so much for that excellent presentation. I had known a little bit about annual perfections, but I didn't know that you could look in the sign and at the degrees of each of the planets for the days of the month. That's super cool. So I want to take a look at that.
You want to know how that happened? I made it up and it works. So basically, after about 3,000 charts using Profections over the years, I decided, like at one point about 2 years ago, to see if that was true. And I began to include it in my client readings. And one of the things I loved is they get back to me, go, oh my God, you said like on March the 15th or so. And I know why I said it. I said it based on a perfection degree within a perfection month. So I need to write a book called the Divine Timing Handbook that I want to create, because I have about 20 different techniques I use. And this one by far, that little piece that you guys learned today about the degree of the month, is something I just learned by figuring it out myself.
Wow. So you'll definitely have to like coin that and
make proprietary. It's proprietary.
Yeah. We all know it came from Lori.
It came from me. I'll write a book. Maybe somebody in the ancient world knew it and I didn't know. Hey, Morgan, your hand's up, but I don't know if that's just an old hand up.
No, it's a new one. Lori, at the beginning, you mentioned that you had been studying a certain system for 4 years.
Hellenistic astrology, yes.
Right. And that sounded as though, that could be interpreted as though you've been doing astrology for 4 years, but I think you've been doing astrology for a lot longer than that.
Yeah, I've been doing astrology since I was 25.
Right.
And I'm 59. Yeah.
I just wanted
this is the ancient tool.
I just wanted to mention that the way that information was framed, it might not have been understood accurately by people who aren't familiar with your background.
Oh, well, thanks for saying that. It's okay. Hopefully the lessons today stand on their own, whether or not I've been doing astrology for 4 years or 40. Yeah. But thanks for letting me know that. Yeah, it's just a type of astrology I've studied, been doing and practicing for 4 years. Mm-hmm. Well, it was fun.
I've been doing it intensely because that was a lot of information and you clearly know it well. So I'm very glad that we had you on here.
Because somehow I managed to see 3,000 clients in the last, since I've been using Zoom, because that's where they're all stored. So that would be since 2018.
You are incredibly productive. You are always going. You have something after the next all the time.
Yeah, that's because I have 4 planets in Aries. Okay, it's like,
there you go.
Go, go, go. Hey, Evelina. You're so quiet today.
Hi. Hi. So nice to see everybody. Beautiful session.
Yeah.
Can you put my email on your emailing list? So I want to get some information and recording from you. That would be wonderful. Thank you.
You know, I think that when Dulcie puts it on YouTube and gives everybody the YouTube link, she's going to put my YouTube channel in the description box. And when you go to my YouTube channel, there's a link to sign up for my newsletter on my channel. Yeah, I'd love to.
Got it.
I do a weekly astrology forecast newsletter every Sunday to my followers on my newsletter. And with that, they get a bunch of special things like freebies and discount codes and coupons and a bunch of gifts from me. So
good to know. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yes, you can just look up her name, and it's also under Lunatic Astrology.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Don't even ask about that. You know, it was like in 2011, I launched, I bought the domain and I didn't use it until 2019 when I created the website. Before that, I was seeing my clients off of another website completely. Okay, sweeties, I'm going to roll and have this wine. I didn't want to drink it in front of everybody in case they thought I was a lush astrologer.
No, amazing. Thank you so much.
All right. I hope I kept it at a pace. Oh, Kitty, does Kitty have a question? I see a hand up. Kitty?
She's clapping.
Oh, clapping. Okay. All right. Bye. Bye.
Okay. Thank you so much. Bye, everyone.
Ciao, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.